will wait for some comments to come in. And last time I think we were interrupted by a phone call, so have everything set up to where we're not going to be interrupted. I'll go ahead and move this camera back just a little bit. And then I also wanted to introduce you to Bella. She was a little shy last time. This is the kitten that we adopted, and she is about 2 months old now, and she's a real sweetheart. I hope you guys are all having a really good day. And today we're just gonna go over and answer any questions that you might have, whether it's fitness related, food related, lifestyle related. We've got Martina on. Hello. Good to see you. Well, not actually see you, but see you here. And Bella says hello also. She's going through phases of being very bitey and very snuggly. Hello, Fancy. Nice to meet you too. Thanks for tuning in. Debbie says, aw. It's aw until she starts chewing on the hair. Hello, hello. Bella says hello. She says she's gonna go back to napping. I woke her up. Hi, Hentai Mommy. How are you? Hello, Bliss. Hi, Tony. Hello, Elizabeth. Oh, thank you. Elizabeth said that she shared my videos now with friends. Thank you so much for that. And we'll be getting back to the videos here shortly. I've actually been competing quite a bit. I've done 4 shows, and I'm heading to Tahoe this weekend to do another competition. Hi, Nayala. Hi, Perla. Bliss asks, can we get fit with vegan food and moderate protein? Yes, absolutely, Bliss. You just want to make sure that you're getting protein at every meal. And with being vegan or vegetarian, you want to make sure that you're combining your protein sources so that you get a complete protein. So these are things like the traditional beans and rice, chickpeas and lentils. If you do bread, like a whole wheat with peanut butter, and also supplementing with protein powder can be very effective when you're on a vegan diet, just for the reason of not getting enough protein through the diet, or you might get enough protein, but then your carbs or your fats might be a little bit high. So this is the time where I do recommend supplementation with protein. Colin says, perfect, vegan power. Orestes says, yes, Orestes is vegan and you can get protein powders as well. Yeah, absolutely. So, you probably have to work a little bit harder because, you can't get complete, there are very few vegan sources of amino acid or vegan sources of complete protein. Silky Sausage asks, can I ask a question? Absolutely. Hentai Mommy asks, can you build muscle at home? Does it stall at some point? So I think regardless of where you train or how you train, you're going to hit plateaus at some point. So with at-home training, you want to make sure that you at least have a really good assortment of resistance bands. If nothing else, dumbbells can be really effective. And make sure you have an adjustable bench. So if I was building my own at-home gym, definitely don't have space for it here, but if I was to build one, I would make sure to get some light dumbbells, and that way you can do some isolation stuff, but also some heavier dumbbells. And then with the bands, what you can do is you can use the bands by themselves, or you can combine them with your dumbbells. And when you do this, you're going to create more tension, you're going to increase your difficulty, because the name of the game, regardless of where you're training, is progressive overload. So you want to try to make the exercises more difficult each time you do them. And it's really, really tough to do that at home, but it is doable. So other things to think about, partial reps can be really effective. Isometric holds can be really effective. And there was a study that came out, Brad Schoenfeld, I believe, headed up that study, but it showed that reps between 5 reps all the way up to 30 reps are great for building muscle. So with at-home training, you may want to focus a little bit more on higher reps, and this is just because you may not have heavy weights, but absolutely. And the other thing about training at home is staying motivated, and also having the discipline to do the workouts. So let's scroll up. I feel like we missed something. Lo asks, I was wondering what gym you train at here in DFW. So when I was with Dymatize, I actually trained at the Dymatize gym, but I live in Tampa, Florida, not in Dallas. So I don't know of good gyms in Dallas. Loretta asks, hi, what is skinny fat and do you get rid of it? Okay, so skinny fat is not a technical term, but this is where someone may not have a good amount of muscle on their body, but they have a higher body fat percentage. And if you look at BMR or BMI, which is body mass index, they would not necessarily be classified as obese, but they may have about 30% body fat and above. And again, they're not classified as obese because their height to weight ratio is okay, but they just don't have a lot of muscle and they have considerably more adipose or fat tissue. So how you get rid of that? A really great way, if you consider somebody skinny fat, which again is not a term that I would necessarily use, but you can look to recomping, which is gaining muscle while simultaneously losing fat. So what you would do is just take advantage of those fat stores, start building muscle, and in this process, the amount of muscle that you have is going to go up and the amount of body fat that you have is going to be decreased. Let's see. Kelly says, it's hard for me to get motivated. Any tips? Yes. So find your why. Why did you get into lifting weights? Where do you want to go with it? Find that why. And it could be a really big goal that you want to achieve. And sometimes if we set really big goals, it can be a little bit disappointing because the goal seems so far away. So make sure you take that really big goal, break it down into smaller goals, and then give yourself intermittent rewards for achieving those small goals. So you're not going to reward yourself all the time, but maybe every second or third time. If you don't listen to Andrew Huberman, I picked this up from him in his recent podcast, and he talks about dopamine. And dopamine doesn't come from the reward itself, it comes from the anticipation of the reward. So build in your goals, build in some intermittent rewards. So not every time you achieve that mini goal will you give yourself, a pedicure, manicure, a new pair of shoes. Try not to make it a food reward or a trip to the beach, whatever it might be that brings you joy. And every second or third or fourth time that you achieve something, that is going to give you a little bit more motivation. So make sure that motivation comes from in here, and that intrinsic motivation or internal motivation is something that you just really never lose. So again, set those goals, set the mini goals, and then reward yourself every second to fourth time, and then you should be able to stay motivated. And then please understand that motivation is not something that you have 100% of every single day. Even I struggle with it. Some days I wake up and I just want to stay in bed. I don't want to work out. I don't want to do anything. I just want to be lazy, and it's not because I'm not feeling good. It's just because sometimes that motivation it wanes. So basically, when you reach that point, it can be really important to establish the habit of working out. So when something becomes a habit, you're able to do it more often. You just, it's part of your life. So, and then the other thing that kind of works is you just tell yourself, hey, I'm gonna warm up, just gonna put my sneakers on, stretch, warm up, and then be done. So don't put a big obstacle in your way, set something small. And if you go to the gym, chances are by the time you get to the gym, you are ready to continue, and you usually will have a really good workout. So they always say getting there is half the battle. So um, Tony says, good to hear that Erin is also a mere mortal. Absolutely. So, and I think that that can be so important and really good to know, because we are all human and nobody is perfect. And I think what separates the people who achieve the goals from the ones who maybe don't achieve the goals, or it takes a little bit longer, is that discipline, creating the habit, having the reward system, and having your really clear objective goals. So we're gonna scroll back up. Ashanti says, finally see a live chat. Yay, thank you so much for being here. Sarah asks, what was the most challenging adjustment you had to make changing your body for bikini from figure? The most challenging adjustment that I had to make was losing muscle, and also trying to decrease that muscle density. So when you train for quite a while, if you have been competing, and if you have been competing in a division for quite a while, you develop a certain amount of muscle that no matter what you do, it just does not want to go away. So I had that. I'm on year 3 of my transformation, and I'm just now feeling like I am fitting into the division, but I had to decrease my protein considerably and stop training upper body completely, and stop training actually legs. So now I'm only training glutes, abs, and a little bit of HIIT. So it's if you're looking to be really competitive in bodybuilding in a specific division, it really boils down to how you train for stage. It's not about what you like to train or how you want to train. It's what exercises and what workouts are going to get you to fit that criteria of the division that you're shooting for. So I think that was probably the hardest, one of the hardest things. But you know what? I love a good challenge, and it's fun showing what the body is capable of naturally. And of course, it does take time, but we are capable of really molding and sculpting our physique into exactly what we want it to be. Flip98 says, love your lashes. Oh, thank you. This is Essence mascara from CVS. Okay, so we're gonna scroll up a little bit. Estella asks, is weight loss really as simple as calories in, calories out? Yes. So if you look at it, you want to create an imbalance between what you take in and what you burn. So you have to be in a caloric deficit in order to lose fat or to lose weight, whatever your goal might be. To get smaller, you have to create that deficit. So, there are a few ways that you can do that, right? So you can create a deficit by increasing your activity level. And let's say you're at maintenance calories, you increase your activity level, that puts you in a deficit. So that's one way to do it. And that tends to be one of my favorite ways to do that, is to just increase intensity, increase volume just a little bit. This doesn't necessarily mean cardio. This just means train harder, train like a beast. HIIT can be really effective. Just make sure you're doing forms of HIIT that you can recover from relatively easily. So, don't go to the track and do sprints. Maybe get on the spin bike, get on the stairs, push a sled, things that, again, you can recover easily from. And compound movements, lifting as heavy as you safely can, that's also going to increase your calorie burn. And that's in the gym and outside of the gym. Okay, let's see. Oh, cool. Melissa says that she started her personal fitness journey about 4.5 years ago, and she's now a personal trainer, and she incorporates things that she's learned from the videos here. Oh, thank you. Rhonda asks, what are the best supplements to take to help build muscle? So I think focusing on food first and foremost, and your actual training, those are my top my top supplements would be food, and that would be protein. If you're trying to build muscle, you can have a moderate protein intake. You just want to make sure that your carb intake is relatively high. So if your carb intake is relatively high to high, you don't have to consume as much protein. So for example, the standard is about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. If you're looking to gain muscle, you can drop it to 0.8 grams per pound of body weight if you're consuming quite a bit of carbs. Carbs are protein sparing, and with that, you want to do a lower fat diet. So if you're trying to gain muscle, you're going to be in a caloric surplus. If you're recomping, you're going to be around maintenance calories. So recomping is gaining muscle while simultaneously losing fat. So that's at maintenance. Gaining or lean bulk, whatever you want to call it, that is caloric surplus. So think about if you're taking in a caloric surplus, then you want to keep fats relatively low. You still want your essential fats. But the reason for this is that dietary fat can, it's almost 100% of it can be converted to body fat if you're in a caloric surplus. That's why you want to be careful. You want to make sure that that protein intake is, moderate, carb intake is high, and the fat intake is relatively low. So, and of course, there are other ways to do it. But that tends to be the most effective for everybody. Now, in terms of supplements, this is if your diet is completely on point. In terms of supplements, you're looking at creatine monohydrate, still the gold standard for muscle building. Cat's shuffling around. So so creatine monohydrate can be great. If you are kind of in a habit of skipping meals, your essential aminos can be helpful. They can really help with recovery too. So those would be my two recommendations for muscle gain. Hello, Mama Loco, all the way from South Africa. Awesome. Love it there. Effective muscle building exercises to train legs when you have weak knees. Okay, so when you have weak knees, you really want to make sure that you're putting your lower body into proper form. So I would not recommend traditional squats. I would probably go to leg press. If you have the ability to do some single leg body weight exercises or split squats or quad step ups, this is where you place your front leg on a bench and you're basically pulling yourself up with your front leg. Very, very difficult exercise. The other pieces of equipment I would recommend would be landmine. So your landmine deadlifts, your landmine squats, your goblet squat is really great. It's not going to compress the spine. Hex bar or your trap bar is going to be really good for building muscle. This is total body muscle, but of course you can do more exercises to focus on the legs. The reason I love the landmine, the goblet squat, and the single leg exercises and the trap bar so much is because they can help encourage proper form. And with the single leg exercises, you're looking at not having to go as heavy and getting optimal results. Nice to see you, Blip. Okay, so there was a question about bra fat. So Sandra asked about bra fat, or Elizabeth did. And, unfortunately, we cannot spot reduce. So spot reduce is where you look at a certain body part and you want to take the fat away. This is not possible. What we can do is reduce overall body fat. And for something like bra fat, you want to hit it with like a double punch thing where you're decreasing your overall body fat, and you're building a little bit of muscle underneath too, because what that's going to do is it's going to fill that area out. It's going to cause the area to look tighter, because there's a little bit more volume in the tissue under the skin. So for raw fat, your exercises like lat pull downs, you want to really hit the long head of the triceps. So dumbbell pullovers, straight arm push downs, tricep push downs, and then your like diamond push-ups, close grip push-ups, skull crushers, and rows. That about covers it as far as hitting that area. But really your pullovers and hitting that long head of the tricep with like a bent over push down can be really effective. Sabine asks, do you recommend a deload week? If so, how often? She says as she gets older, she realizes she's more prone to injury in general and needs more recovery time. So maybe incorporating deload weeks will help. Absolutely. So there's not a specific time frame for deloads. So it's not like every 2 weeks or every 4 weeks or every 6 weeks, but typically you'll have something called a mesocycle. So that would be a block of training. And as you go through your mesocycle, you'll get these aches and pains that kind of build up, and you get stronger, yes, but recovery can start to suffer. So typically at the end of a mesocycle is when you want to take a deload, and this would be 5 to 7 days of just kind of like an active recovery where you might walk, bike, or swim easy, or you can go into the gym and decrease your volume by about half and decrease the weights you use by 50 to 60%, and just kind of go in and get a pump. It's really good just for mindset, if you still want to be in the gym. But that being said, if you feel like you need more time to recover, you can take a deload every 4 to 6 weeks, a little bit closer than every 90 days, if you need it. And a good rule of thumb is if you do have those aches and pains that start to kind of add up, if you are having trouble sleeping, if the weights that used to feel pretty light start to feel a bit heavier, if you're irritable, if you've got brain fog, or if you're lacking motivation, and it just kind of slowly sets in, this lack of motivation, then time away from the gym is not a bad thing, especially when you've planned it. And I really do prefer a deload week where you allow yourself to recharge mentally and physically. It's going to get rid of those aches and pains. It's going to get you in a good mindset where you're excited to go back to the gym. And what it does is it sensitizes your muscles to needing less stimulus in order to get the same results. So as you're working through, we're working on progressive overload. Let's say you start your mesocycle or your block of training and you're doing 2 to 3 sets of an exercise. Well, you get towards the end and you may be at like 6 or 7 sets, or your volume has increased incrementally each week. So with that, you want to take a deload, or you want to take a little bit of time off so you can go back to doing your 2 to 3 set or even 4 sets of something where you may have been doing 7 before, and you'll see the same results. Yuritsi asks, do you recommend heavy lifting for us thin girls that want bigger mass legs and boom? Is that booty? Yes. So I think Yuritsi, to focus on heavy lifting, yes, but that doesn't mean you have to do heavy lifting every single workout session. So if you're looking to really build legs, it's going to be a combination of low reps, heavy weights, done safely, of course. So you pick the exercises that you have good confidence in. So maybe it would be a leg press versus trying to max out on a squat, because you know that at least with a leg press, you have some stabilization there. You've got safety. and you're able to isolate a little bit more. So, I would recommend something like that. And then you have to look at moderate reps and moderate weight. So, somewhere between that 12 to 20 rep range, it's going to hit those slow twitch muscles too. And then you also want to look at high rep with light weight. So, all the way up to 30 reps. And combining all three is what's going to give you the best amount of gains. And it's great to lift heavy. It can be really challenging, really exhilarating, but it's really tough to get enough volume in order to build muscle. So you want to have those heavy days, and you want to have moderate days where you can get the reps in, you can get the volume in, you can work on mind muscle connection, because if you're really looking to gain mass, you want to have a good mind muscle connection too. So you don't want to just go in and train like you're doing a powerlifting competition, because then you're not able to really isolate, okay, I want to build my quads more than my hamstrings, or hamstrings more than my quads. If you're lifting heavy, that kind of goes out the window, right? Because you're just really focused on getting that weight moving versus using the specific muscles. So Lisa asks, hi from New Zealand. Well, hello. Would you recommend creatine when first starting out bodybuilding? Does it cause water retention? So yes, I would absolutely recommend creatine monohydrate. Does it cause water retention? Yes, and I think it's upwards of 30% of people do experience a little bit of water retention. But understand what creatine does is it helps increase the intramuscular water of course, inside the muscle. So muscles are 70% water, and if you have more water in the muscle, you're able to get more reps in, you're able to get more quality volume in, which equates to gains. So yes, and if you're really concerned about it, I would recommend just not doing loading dose. So you don't have to load creatine ever. The standard dose is 2.5 milligrams per 100 pounds. So that's important to know. You're probably taking in less than 5 grams. If you find that it causes gastrointestinal distress, or even with bloating, you can do 1 to 2 grams every day for 30 days, and you're not going to excrete any of it, and you're going to get a really nice saturation in the muscles. So those are a couple of different options. And keep in mind with creatine that you want to take it separate from your caffeine. So if you're doing a pre-workout combo, let's say you get your pre-workout, your glutamine, all your supplements, and you're tossing your creatine in there, it's not going to be absorbed as well. It's not going to be as effective, because caffeine does hinder the absorption of creatine. If you want to know about all things creatine, check out Dr. Darren Candow. It's CANDOW. He's got some great podcasts on it. He's on the cutting edge of all things creatine. And if you're listening to this, if you are 50 and over, creatine actually has really fantastic fat loss benefits. There are also cognitive benefits to taking creatine. So, of course, it's not something that you have to take that recommended dose. You can take a smaller dose over time and just build it up in your system. Hello, Carmel from Birmingham, England. My thumbs get in the way sometimes. Cheryl asks, I was wondering if you feel compound exercises like squats and deadlifts are good enough to build glutes, or are isolation exercises necessary? So Cheryl, thank you for the kind words. And, as far as your compound movements to build glutes, I do think you need to include them, but be smart about them, right? So you don't want to do, I'm not saying you don't want to do, but consider squat variations versus your traditional back squat, because there are squat variations that you are going to feel in your glutes like nothing else. So, things like landmine squat, Zercher squat, goblet squat, banded squats, single leg squats, skater squats, I could go on and on, are really, really great for hitting the glutes. And your deadlifts, same thing. Traditional deadlifts can be really taxing on the central nervous system. Not everybody is built to squat and deadlift. So that's why I always recommend dumbbell deadlifts. Dumbbell deficit deadlifts are fantastic for hitting those glutes. Anywhere or anytime where you have your upper leg going below parallel, you're really going to engage the glutes. That being said, you do need isolation work in order to successfully build the glutes. And this is just because there are so many ranges of motion and movement patterns that hit the glutes. And you don't want to neglect the abductors either. So you've got your external rotation and abduction. That's going to hit the upper glutes. So depending on how your glutes are shaped, you may want to add in those isolation exercises. A lot of us, myself included, had pretty good lower glutes, but the upper glutes needed work, and it's hard to isolate those upper glutes with your compound movements. So looking again at your abduction, your external rotation, exercises like your sumo deadlift can potentially hit the upper glutes, but you don't want to forget your hip extension exercises, your RDLs, your pull-throughs, your reverse pull-throughs, and all of that. So hopefully that helps. And I do have a program on my site, erinsternfitness.com, and it's called Glute Gains. And it's all about the glutes. It's 90 days, and you're hitting glutes 3 to 4 days per week, along with upper body maintenance. And the main goal is to just build glutes. So check it out, if you're looking for a good program for building glutes. Yes, Fan asks, you recommend taking creatine if you're trying to lose body fat while gaining muscle. Yes, it can be helpful. Understand though, when you start taking creatine, that the scale, if you're weighing yourself, might go up just a little bit, and this is just water. So very, very important to know. Gabriel asks, glute isolation exercises. I always feel my quads when I do hip thrust. So Gabriel, switch to glute bridges for a bit. That can help isolate the glutes just a little bit more than those hip thrusts. Of course, that range of motion is shorter, but another thing to really focus on is proper glute activation. So monster walks, your kickbacks, your banded squats, banded side steps, really going to help get those glutes engaged, and this should take the quads away just a little bit. You can also look to elevating your feet. That can help. And another thing that can help in your isolation or in your activation work is to do body weight glute bridge. Get up into the bridge or that plank position. Really squeeze the glutes. Focus on pushing your weight through your heel and trying to push your heels away from your body. So this can help engage those glutes and help kind of take the quads out of the equation. But yeah, it's pretty common. So with hip thrusts, that the quads are really just a secondary muscle, and some people do feel them more than others. Karen asks, what is the best way to reduce waistline? Vacuums, vacuums, vacuums. That has helped me bring in my waist about 1.5 inches. So I highly recommend vacuums. If you're not doing them, do them first thing in the morning. You can do them lying in bed. Just lie on your back, bring your knees up, put your feet on the bed. You're laying on the bed, your feet are even with the rest of your body, and that's going to be helpful. So yeah, vacuuming, really great for improving core strength, improving my muscle connection, and decreasing waist size. Oh, Lady Luck, interesting question. Do you know if birth control gets in the way of muscle gains? Well, it depends on if it's hormone based. Some forms are some are not. So if you're taking in excess estrogen, then it can actually increase body fat storage. As far as hindering muscle gain, not so sure about that, but I do know that it can cause a little bit of holding of body fat. Melissa asks, when I squat, I just can't go all the way down. Is it still beneficial to squat or should I do something else? Perhaps try a different squat variation. With traditional back squats, a lot goes into it. You may have a shorter torso, you may have deep hip socket. So if your hip socket is deep, then you're going to experience a pinch across the front of your hips. And this just means genetically you're probably not set out to squat super low. So, you might want to try lunges or split squats, or even step ups, where you can at least get the upper leg below parallel without loading your spine and, putting yourself into a situation. The other thing that you can do is elevate your heels. So, sometimes it comes down to ankle mobility. And if you don't have good ankle mobility, it will prevent you from squatting all the way down. So, without seeing you and looking at your squat, it's tough to say, but in troubleshooting, you can really try those things. Let's see here. Han asks, best tip for hamstrings isolation. I am very quad dominant. Okay, so best tip for hamstring isolation would be to isolate the hamstring. So you're looking at your hip extension and knee flexion. So you must train the hamstrings in those two capacities or those two movement patterns. And this would be straight leg deadlifts, RDLs, pull-throughs, reverse pull-throughs. Those are going to help train that hip extension aspect. Then my favorite for knee flexion would be Nordic curls. You can do them pretty much anywhere. It's a body weight exercise, super tough, great for hypertrophy. So it's, I think, the number one exercise for hypertrophy of the hamstrings. Now, if it's something that you maybe can't set up a Nordic curl, you don't want to do it, then you can do seated leg curls, lying leg curls. But if you're already doing those, I would really mix it up. So on the lying leg curl, I would perhaps do double legs up, single leg negative. That can be a really effective way to strengthen the hamstrings, kind of get you over that plateau if you've plateaued, and really focus on dorsiflexion of your feet. So instead of pointing your toes, dorsiflex your feet. This can help take the quads out of the equation. So what we want to try to do is take away any of the limiting factors. So that's a really effective way. Another effective way would be lying leg curls. If you take a yoga block or one of those balance pads, place it kind of under your abdomen and a little bit under your hips. And you're going to rotate your hips under. So you think about pushing your hip bones into the pad, and you can prop yourself up with your upper body if you would like, but think about kind of creating a bit of a C shape with your body. And this is really going to help isolate those hamstrings. You're going to have to go lighter because you'll find that the contraction is super intense and you won't be able to lift as much. So that's one of my favorite ways to really isolate those hamstrings. And the other thing is single leg work can be really effective when you're training in compound movements. Really focus on pushing your weight through your heel and sitting back just a bit more. This can help accentuate posterior chain. So super, super helpful. And typically if you want to focus on the quads, you're gonna push your body weight through your toes a bit more. So experiment with that. But I would say if you're working on weight distribution through your feet, perhaps try body weight only and go super, super slow. So really focus on that negative or eccentric range of motion and get your pause at the bottom. Let's say you're doing a squat variation or some type of lunge variation, give yourself a nice pause, really focus on pushing through the heel, and then come up. And, as soon as you turn your attention to something and you slow things down, lighten up on the weight just a little bit, your mind muscle connection will be improved. And really don't worry, because most of us are quad dominant or they're front of the body dominant, because it's mind muscle connection, so you can see your quads and you're really easily able to train them, whereas you can't see the hamstrings. They're a little bit harder to connect with, but connect you will. I know it. Let's see. I'm trying to keep my thumb out of the camera. I never, you would think that I'd be able to do that. Oh, thank you, Blue Collar Hero. Says that these broadcasts are gold. Thank you. I apologize, I'm like jumbling words a little bit here and there. It is because I'm doing peak week, so I leave for Tahoe to compete in another competition on Sunday. So I'm a little bit depleted. Shake or Shake asks, how long should I be in a caloric deficit? It's been 4 weeks of 500 less calories. Is there a limit? Should I take a break for a few weeks and just do maintenance calories? So a 500 calorie deficit every single day is a pretty good deficit. And at 4 weeks, have you seen progress? Hopefully you have. Now, if you haven't seen progress on that big of a caloric deficit, it may be that you could have miscalculated what a caloric deficit for you would be, and you might still be at maintenance calories. Or what can happen is if you're too aggressive. Okay, so you have seen results. Awesome. So we don't have to go into the troubleshooting phase. Yeah, absolutely. After 4 weeks, you can take, I wouldn't necessarily do a diet break, but I would bump those calories back up and go into maintenance, especially if you are feeling like you've got diet fatigue and maybe if you have started to plateau. So 4 weeks is not a long time to diet, but typically people will diet until they see the results they want, which I'm not necessarily a fan of. I am a fan of dieting for 4 to 8 weeks, then going into maintenance, so you're able to boost your metabolism. You get a bit of a break. You're not starving all the time, which means your mood typically will improve, sleep will improve, recovery improves, all of that. So give yourself a nice maintenance phase. I don't know if I would necessarily go on a diet break, because your whole goal is to lean down when you're running a caloric deficit. So if you decide that you're just going to take a break from dieting, typically that can lead to overeating. So just really focus on perhaps, increasing those calories, and you might want to kind of stair step it to where at 4 weeks, you can probably just increase back up to what you were and, stay there for a couple of weeks maybe, and then get back to your deficit. So, and also understand that if you're smaller, what was maintenance before may not be maintenance now. So you're smaller, you're going to burn less calories. So I don't know if I would necessarily go up that 500 calories per day, maybe be a little bit more moderate, maybe go up like 300, 350 and kind of see what that does for you. So hopefully that helps. It's funny because we can't necessarily predict what the body is going to do, and what yours might do, because you've been in quite a bit of a deficit, is when you start to increase those calories again back up to maintenance, you may still experience a large drop in weight. And typically, sometimes that can be body fat, but most of the time it's fluid, because you have kind of built up cortisol just a little bit. Your body's a bit stressed out, and when you feed it, it kind of breathes a sigh of relief and releases some of that fluid. And that's something else to keep in mind, is that if you're dieting and you're not necessarily seeing results, you are losing body fat if you are in a caloric deficit, but sometimes cortisol increases, and this can cause us to hold water. And typically the places where we hold water is kind of where we would hold fat. So that can be a little bit tough. So at that point, you've got a couple of options. Continue pushing through with your deficit and see if you start to drop that water. Or what you can do is give yourself a food bump, a little refeed, or you can kind of go into maintenance for a couple weeks, depending on how long it's been, and let your body just adjust. Vinodo asks, can you explain your decision to re-enter IFBB competition since you initially left? Oh, I didn't initially leave due to politics. So, you know, this is, I would say, kind of a touchy subject, but, you know, I originally left because, you know, figure was evolving, it was changing, it was becoming a bit more muscular, and it wasn't my ideal anymore. So, you know, I think if your goal is to compete, you better choose a division that makes you excited when you look at the competitors, especially the competitors that are at the very top. If you want to look exactly the way they look, you know, as far as their musculature, the balance, and all of that, then absolutely competing is for you. But for me, it started out that way, and, you know, I just, it didn't speak to me anymore. It became something that was a bit of a chore, and I won Olympia twice in figure. You know, it was like, what else was I looking to prove? And, you know, I wasn't helping anybody. Competing is can be a bit of a selfish thing. So, you know, I left, and then I saw how Bikini evolved, and I really liked the division and how the girls looked, and I knew that it was something that I could compete in and, you know, hopefully be competitive, but it became an ideal that spoke to me, and a good challenge, because figure's so structured, Bikini's flirty, bubbly, the physique looks totally different, and I wanted that challenge. So that's why I'm back. And yes, I'm lifetime natural, and, you know, no judgment to any of the competitors. You know, I just think that it's important for people who follow the sport for people to disclose certain things. Like, let's say they're selling a diet plan or a workout plan. It's important to know that if a person isn't taking something, they're not going to achieve the same results as someone who is taking something. So, you know, that's the best way that I can answer it. It's kind of complicated, of course, as many things are, but I truly love bodybuilding. I love the IFBB, and, you know, I'm just happy to be back. Let's see. Zoe 70 plus goes, hey guys, it's Erin. Yes. Christopher says, my wife and I met you at a show last year. You gave her some advice and she stuck to it, and she just got top 5 at a national show. Aw. He says, thank you so much. We're both huge fans. Well, I'm a huge fan of y'all. I mean, that's amazing. You know, it's one thing to get advice, because advice is plentiful, it's free, it's really easy for someone to be armchair quarterback, but to put the work in and day out, and to have that dedication, that devotion, that drive, the discipline, all of it, you know, kudos to you, and kudos to your wife, and I'm excited to hear when she goes pro. And that's an amazing accomplishment. It is. So well done. The kitten is awake. So I know that you probably weren't on from the very beginning, but this is Bella. We adopted her. Oh, look how snoozy she is. She's like, put me down. But yes, so she's about 2 months old now, and she's the best cat ever. That's why I keep kind of scratching my face, because I think I snuggled her and I got cat hair on me, and so yes, she says hello, goodbye. Okay, so we'll do one more and then we'll sign off for today. So Sarah, let's see. Sarah's asking, Kelly says she's adorable. Sarah's asking, where did it go? How do you stop bloating? It's driving me crazy. Please help. I'm training really hard. Okay, so Sarah, bloating can be a number of different things. I would say look to the foods you're eating. You know, make sure that you don't have some kind of food allergy or intolerance. Know that there are certain foods that can absolutely cause bloating, like your beans, for example. Cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower can cause a little bit of bloating too. Garlic, onions, those can also cause a little bit of bloating, but nothing severe. So keep a food log if you can. And, you know, typically bloating will happen a few hours after you eat. So I think there's probably something in there, or it could be too, you might be carb sensitive. So pay attention to your carb choices. And the other thing with carbs is, you know, we've often been told that brown rice is like the health food, it's what we're supposed to be eating, but you know, maybe switch to white rice if you're doing brown rice, because brown rice is higher in fiber, it's harder to digest, and it is high in, I believe it's phytic acid, and which is called an anti-nutrient, so it can actually leach nutrients from your body. So you know, make sure you're drinking plenty of water, try not to drink a ton of carbonated stuff. If you chew gum, that can cause bloating. And sometimes too, salt can cause bloating if you've had way more salt than what you're used to. Lack of sleep can also cause bloating. So, and hormones. So there are a number of different things. And I think it probably would be best to just go through systematically and see what, you know, look at one thing at a time and see if you can kind of troubleshoot it. But, hopefully that helps. I know it's very, very frustrating. Isabel says, not sure what to eat before working out on leg day or back day. Make sure you get a good amount of protein and a good amount of carbs. So something like chicken and rice is excellent. Chicken and white rice. And make sure you keep your fats low. I would say avoid acidic foods if possible. Don't load up on your vegetables. Try to keep fiber relatively low because you want that meal to digest relatively quickly. And also keep your fats relatively low pre and post workout. So what that just does is it aids in absorption of those nutrients, gets it through your system, into your system much, much faster. So moderate protein, moderate to high carb, low fiber, low fat, no dairy. You know, some people are okay with dairy, but and nothing acidic, and veggies, no veggies. Or if you do veggies, do something like very simple, like a celery or a cucumber or spinach. So hopefully that helps. Thank you guys so much for chatting with me. I really love these live Q&As, and in the next few weeks we'll have some workouts for you. And thank you again. Keep up the amazing work. So set your objective goals. They must be objective, and work towards them. You can achieve anything you set your mind to, and make sure you're eating right. Thank you guys. I love you. Take care and train hard. See you soon.